Thank you so much for introducing. And first of all, good afternoon. I am Showan Tavakol, as you said. I'm a professional Kamancha player. It's a spike fiddle current in Middle East and Iran, a Persian multi-instrumentalist, and I'm instructor in Centre de Musiciens du Monde, the World Music Center in in the Montreal, instructor of Kamanche and Iranian violin style, doctoral student in composition. And this project is an interdisciplinary project which make a link between the musicology and the pedagogical studies for the performers. First of all, I should say that for me, this project is about adapting some aesthetic elements of musical system in this context to a contemporary composition. And among the most important musical parameters of Middle East, the concept of the mode is really important, and I've been concentrating on the modal systems of the Middle East, like the Maqam and Maqam for the Arabic and Turkish, and Dastgah for the Persian classical music. In the context of my artistic creations, this modal system, though these modal systems, the aesthetic of these three systems influenced me greatly, but the goal of my project is to integrate these systems to my own contemporary compositions. So as it's my research questions. The first of all, the general one is that how to what are the best strategies for integrating the aesthetic systems of traditional Middle Eastern to a contemporary Western music? And the other one is for this presentation, how can we expand the timbral possibilities of the Western instruments by introducing the rare and unusual technique of playing of ornamental oriental instruments, to have the new extended techniques which are inspired from the Middle Eastern music. So my objectives are create a various model of contemporary reflections and introduce the new materials for contemporary music, creating a unique hybrid language, and at the end integrate unusual and rare timbre and playing techniques of oriental instruments as extended techniques for them. I try to introduce you the word of the Maqam. The word of the Maqam, it means that the word of the oriental modes and the modal systems, oriental microtonality, the concept of the morphemes. The morphemes for me are the aesthetic codes which transfer the aesthetic elements of the language, a Middle Eastern language, to a contemporary music, and the common approach between two different music, and my methodology and some pieces if I have time. The word of Maqam. Where is the word of the Maqam? Word of the Maqam means the word of Middle Eastern, or not Middle Eastern. It's better because all of these systems are not in the Middle Eastern. You can find in Near East and Anatolia and maybe South Asia and Western China too, like Uyghur. North of we can find it in north of Africa, Israel, Lebanon, and Syria as the Arab countries, Turkey, Anatolia, and Iran as the Persian classical music. So what is the Maqam and what is these modal systems in this vast area? So the closest approach to Oriental modes in Western music are medieval modes or Gregorian modes with some different character about hierarchical elements. So all Middle Eastern modal systems, as I told you, have the similar character regarding tonal spatial. It means that the situation of each note is important, and it causes to have a particular melodic path or melodic circuit. But this part of the modes are not my principal idea for developing this presentation. This presentation is more about the specific microtonal context and consubstantial aesthetic features. Why consubstantial aesthetic feature? I will explain you. What are the consubstantial aesthetic features for me? They are specific ornamentations such as oriental fantasies, tekiye and tahrir. For example, the tekiyes are the grace note which used after the note, and the tahrir are the vocal melismatic sequences. Stylistic features such as the specific techniques of oriental instruments. For example, the duduk, Armenian duduk, as a double reed instrument, has a specific technique which has which is in vibrato, which is used by only the lower jaw. So it could be added as an extended technique to other instruments, Western instruments, like the obwa, which is a double reed. First of all, here about the macrotonality in Middle East, I want to mention that the vast range of a traditional macrotonality of Middle Eastern music, we can find different ancient theory of intervals like the Farabi, Maraghi, and Safieddin. But this one that I show you, it's the one ancient which is really found now in today's Persian music. You see here the quarter tones, but the quarter tones are not exact quarter tones because this is not an equal tempered system like the Western music. So the Safieddin, the theorist of 13th century, Middle Eastern theorist, in his book Kitab al-Advar, he has explored the division of an octave into 17 intervals and in details, and because of that we have the intervals like Mojannab, which is 120 cents, or Mojannab Bozorg, which is 165 cents, and Baghiye, which is 90 cents. So it's completely different with 12 tone tempered system in Western music. I told you that the morpheme, the concept of the morphemes, the concept of the music of modal system has some aesthetic codes. So these aesthetic codes, I named them morphemes. The morphemes are the smallest individually meaningful elements in utterance of a language, but in this language, I've taken this concept from French ethnomusicologue Jean During in his book Musique d'Iran, Iranian music, about the specific playing techniques of instruments of word of Maqam. For example, they are, of course, they appear in any context musical. It's because of that I told you this feature, conceptual aesthetic features, is for me important, because in fact I searched the features which could transfer the aesthetic codes in any context, like and the spatial tonal systems of the mode can't of course they couldn't have this these features don't need to have a spatial system of the modes, like hierarchy of the notes. Another thing is oriental fantasies or ornamentation, which are the morphemes, and something that I expand in my research is a fragmentation of syntactic structures. So I told you about the Middle Eastern music. Now I need to find a common approach in modal-based Middle Eastern and contemporary music to better integrate these two type of musical universe against the equal temperament, the opposite of a regular pulsation, like the asymmetric rhythms contemporary music, as we see in the, for example, Stravinsky, and aksaks. Aksaks are the rhythm in the Middle Eastern music, which are completely different. For example, the 9 in the Middle Eastern music is not 3 plus 3 plus 3, it's 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1. It's completely different. In the interdetermination, for example, the cultural rhetoric system of Lutoslavsky could be compared with system of improvisation of a mode. The timbre, the heterophonic texture, which could be found in Oriental orchestra and orchestration, Western orchestration, minimalism, using the minimal materials, and ultrachromatism and pansonority of Vishnegradsky. For microtonality of Vishnegradsky, I have attempted to integrate some interval systems in Middle East, like the Safiuddin as shown, in theoretical and current sense, in combination with contemporary Western microtonal systems such as Vishnegradsky divisional interval systems. The result of finding these common tendencies are composing for 3 different solos with their studies I wrote for solo cello, for cello solo, and a double reed era for oboe solo, and acoustic for harp scordatura. And at the end, I try to mix them in for a new orchestration. My methodology was writing short Middle Eastern studies for Western instruments for the same instrumental family as their Eastern counterpart. For example, when I want to write for cello, I use the kamanche, qeychak, and the other bow strings, which are really similar. For example, we can transfer the bow techniques of these instruments to cello and the left hand's possibilities. In this way, the Western instrumentalist would be able to familiarize themselves with intervals, ornaments, melodic paths, and the main system of the Maqam. Recreation of sonority and timbre of mentioned instruments in different texture, as for example the contemporary textures. The first pieces that I wrote is contemporary. It's continuum for cello solo. I told you I've inspired from Kamanche, Lira, Sarud, Sarangi from Iranian music, and the micro contrasting texture of Persian music. The morphemes as the playing techniques. I've inspired. There are slide vibrato, mordant by one finger, fixed position, teki and tahrir as the ornaments, dorab and shalal as the intensity contrast of the bow, micro control slide, something like this. And these are the instruments that I've inspired: qeychak from South Iran, lira from Anatolia and Turkey, kemençe of Turkey, and sarangi from South Asia. Here, I try to. What's the problem? Yes. For example, this is a. Sorry. This is an expert from a study I wrote to teach a microtonal slide vibrato. It's a vibrato. We can't say it's completely vibrato. It's a slide, microtonal slide, which is used with vibrato. For example, here. You hear this type of the slide vibrato that which you can find in the Western violins or cello. Another study that I wrote, it's for the tekiye. The tekiyes are the ornaments which comes from after the note, and like the achakutura, which comes after the note, and they have they take a very small amount of the notes. It depends on the notes before them, and they give a feeling like at the end point after the main note, like the fading out. We stop bowing as soon as reaching them. It could be like at the end of the words in the French alphabet, for example. And this is another the third movement that I have the chance to collaborate with Bozzini, Quattro Puccini, and there I'm teaching them the bow string, the bow technique, whose name is Durab or Shalal. This is a bow string which is current in the Middle East. And Bastenegar, the second movement of the cello, as you see, this is a micro contrast which which is the result from the principal notes and the ornament together, but in a contemporary context. It's really important. The techias, for example, they are the morphemes. They could be in other contexts. They could appear in any context without the tonal, spatial, or hierarchical characteristic of the mode. Another excerpt that I wrote, it's about the comma Pythagorean. You see here, there are, as I told you, there are specific intervals in Persian music like Mujannab Kuchak and Mujannab Buzurg, which are 107, for example, between 120 and 125, and here 160 and 175. How a musician can find a comma Pythagorean as the smallest particle in the intervals, and how by adding and reducing them, reducing a semitone or a tone, how can perceive these notes. It's another movement, and so the double rate era I wrote for the obva solo based on these instruments: duduk Armenian, zurna Anatolian, Sorna of Iran, Balaban, Kurdish Balaban, Karna from Iran, and May. You can find it in Balkan and somewhere in Turkey. For example, the piece I wrote for the first study that I wrote, it was about the duduk vibe, which is a vibration, specific vibration, which the mode of playing is using the lower jaw, only lower jaw. It could be an extended techniques for the oboist, which use only the lips or the boss jaw for the vibration, and it gives us the another type of the vibration and bend, macrotonal bend that I've taken from the Nayal Barhusi, Egyptian Nayal Barhusi. It's a wind instrument too. And
about 4 minutes left.
Yeah, okay. About 4 minutes. Yeah, okay, thank you. And this is the duduk vibrato I wrote in a contemporary context. The variation of the duduk vibrato and the bend microtonal. Another pieces that I wrote, it's about the harp, which I use the morphemes of the qanun. It's like this. Yeah. No, it's not possible. So at the end, I try to use these instruments in orchestration, but how I use them, at the end, I try to use this instrument in an ensemble while using the morphemes for this ensemble too. In fact, the timbre of orchestra would be influenced by heterogeneity of the timbre of each instrument regarding itself. It means that each instrument is completely another things, and it tries to be, for example, a zurna in the timbre and the context, and violoncelle tries to be a paycheck in timbre and using the morphemes. This could be achieved by heterophonic and heterogenic timbres together, which are supported by a variety of morphemes. As I told you, the aesthetic codes could be found in different systems, and we can use the aesthetic codes for transferring some aesthetic elements of a system for using in another context like the contemporary context of music. So it could be good idea for using it for finding the particular aesthetic system of every systems for new style of composition. Thank you so much for hearing me.
Thank you very much, Showan. That's very interesting. I'm curious, one of the things that sometimes is a challenge, I think, in this is when you have both of the tuning systems of the Western instruments and the non-Western instruments trying to play together. And I'm curious, how do you sort of conceptualize that sort of clash of cultures, if you will, in the music itself?
Of course, it's very difficult. For example, exactly when you want to play with as a performer, I say. For example, because I play Kamanche. When you want to play with a pianist, the problem is that the tempered system of the piano and the different intervals we have. So for the piano, it's not possible to have this flexibility to be near to Kamanche intervals. So the Kamanchist should change him to these intervals. So it's really important to find the instrument which has this flexibility. I think there's some wind instruments and the bow strings like the violin and violoncello has this possibility for being together. And first of all, for example, when I try to write some improvisation for Western instrumentation, I told them, okay, improvise I need, but the concept of improvisation is completely different in Oriental music and Western music. It's really important, and after that, I decided to write everything I want, because the style of improvisation, that's something that the Oriental musicians learn while learning the music from childhood, for example. Yeah. So this is the problem, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have to stop here and take a quick break, and then we'll start with our last four student presenters. So I'll see everybody back here in, oh, what is it, like 13 minutes now, or something like